Hey everybody, it's Minius, and the Mass Effect Remaster, known as the Legendary Edition, is coming out soon. Probably. I've seen possible release dates of mid-February, I've seen June, I've seen that it was supposed to be here already. Right now, March 12th looks like the most likely date. Anyway, the point is, I'm looking forward to playing the Trilogy again.
What?
Right? A shocking statement coming from a Mass Effect YouTuber, but I haven't actually played the Trilogy in a while.
What?
Yeah, which is something I used to do all the time. My last time was literally right before I started this channel. After that point, when I wanted to dive into the Mass Effect universe, I did so through making a video or skimming through the thousands of clips I have on file, or just replaying a specific section of the game to grab some new video. It's actually a little mind-boggling how much time I've spent on the Trilogy without actually truly replaying it. Almost all of the footage I've used in every video on this channel was from that 2015 playthrough, which really wasn't a true 1-2-3 playthrough anyway. I made sure to use FemShep for Mass Effect 2 to vary the footage, and I'm not even sure those 1 and 3 MailShep saves line up. In fact, I've got so many saves imported to Mass Effect 3 that it takes a few extra minutes to boot on my old console. So it's been more than 5 years since I've done a true playthrough, and I miss it. The Mass Effect Trilogy was one of those things that came along with exactly the right stuff at exactly the right time for me. I wasn't necessarily a BioWare guy going in. As a kid, I had some friends super into Baldur's Gate, but that kind of gameplay really wasn't for me. What first got my attention was Knights of the Old Republic. Up to that point, I had never experienced any game with that much story and dialogue before, and that game allowed you to dip into the Star Wars universe much more effectively than movies coming out at the time did. I like Star Wars, but probably not as much as most people. It's always struck me as more of a fantasy series in space, which is great. A lot of my favorite fictional universes are fantasy, but fantasy always comes with a sense of unreality, and science fiction, on the other hand, works with what is possible. Mass Effect sounded a lot more real. Traveling faster than light appears impossible, but not if you can reduce your mass to near zero. And that's the science at the core of the Mass Effect series. A fictional substance allows the citizens of the Milky Way to drastically decrease or even increase the mass of any object, which allows for all kinds of things. It really sounded like something I'd be into. I was also way too broke to play it. It first came out on Xbox 360, which I didn't have, and then PC, and the PC I had at the time was basically a word processor and web browser, barely capable of playing old Blizzard games. So it appeared I was going to have to skip this one. Then it was announced the second game was coming to PlayStation, and I did have a PlayStation only because I was able to split the cost with a roommate. I decided to test out the original Mass Effect on my elderly PC before the Mass Effect 2 PS3 release, and the results were hilarious.
Critical failure.
But after many crashes, I discovered my PC could run it. If I swiped out my widescreen monitor for a classic 4x3 style monitor and pushed the settings all the way down. So my first experience of the Mass Effect universe looked something like this. But the game outshined my personal technical limitations to the point where I barely remember the effects of doing that. The majority of the game is scientifically based, but what really stuck with me is how human the characters were. Yes, many of those characters are literally alien, but the majority of them had a real familiar, relatable, and ultimately sympathetic feel to them. A species banished from their home, forced to wander without harbor. A species that overreached and now has their population artificially controlled by those in power. A faction unhappy with the resolution of a war and holding a grudge. These things can be pictured by the player and understood with little effort. This clashes with the hard science fiction aspect a little bit. I expect if we ever meet real aliens, we won't understand them at all. I mean, we can barely understand our different cultures on our own planet, and those cultures are literally human. Focusing on understanding any true alien species would completely dominate the plot, but making the aliens of Mass Effect immediately sympathetic creates a sense of unity and camaraderie that makes it a universe you want to live in. And I dove in. And the combat of the original was a little funky, but I got my hands on Mass Effect 2 soon afterwards, and the combat there made me a Mass Effect fan for life. I might not have been able to afford many games at the time, but I didn't need to. And I'm not sure how many hundreds of hours I ended up getting from the Mass Effect Trilogy, but it's easily more than any other game like it. It also spawned this channel that's got over 100 videos, and who knows how many hours of work behind it. About a decade later, I'm in a much better spot financially, but, things aren't really doing that great around the world right now. So It seems like a good time for Mass Effect. And Mass Effect videos. I'll have more on the way, but for now...
I should go.